And I think the vast majority of like the open queue mouthpieces are the higher ranked players who didn't have to deal with that. And I'm sorry, your just opinion doesn't matter that much in that regard.
There's an argument that people have brought up during gaming debates since the dawn of time, and there's a reverse to this argument as well. It goes something like this. You don't get it because you're high rank. You just can't. Now, it may seem bizarre for this to be something worthy of a deep dive, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's extrapolate on the argument a bit more first, to kind of make sense of what it specifically means, in case you haven't heard a debate where someone already does so. Essentially, the logic goes something like this. As a high-rank player, your perspective is skewed in such a way that you don't see the game in the same way a low-level player does. Whether it be the way you approach a situation, your solution, the way you even find a solution considering your mechanical skill, the level of interaction and teamwork you can find with your teammates, and even just your general view of the game and what it means to you, the argument presented here is that high-level players are not effectively able to put themselves in the shoes of a low-level player, so they won't be able to properly represent said perspective. If you're curious what the application of this kind of argument could apply to, typically it's brought up when discussion happens about how to benefit a game through changes. It's definitely a topic that gets brought up in broader debates, but it even seeps into arguments like character balance. To give a really simple example, consider the way a high-level Overwatch player views Widowmaker versus how a lower-level player views her. Generally, higher-level players have more qualms with Widowmaker's design than lower-level players. This isn't just an anecdote, there was a literal survey done that was sorted by rank. This is very obviously because Widowmaker has a very high skill ceiling for mechanics, as well as a very low skill floor. Considering higher level players typically have higher mechanical skill, Widow is more likely to dominate a lobby at higher level, whereas lower level players may be more used to Widowmakers contributing nothing to their team. This isn't to say that people can't have the opposite opinions typical of their rank, but the general trend is like this. This would, obviously, create a break in discussion and thought between a lower-level player and a higher-level player. Or, that's what someone who uses this argument would have you think. I want to take a really out-there bunny trail with you. Hey, bunny trail. Bunnies are cute and wonderful, right? Oink is for sure. Please like and subscribe and join the channel if you can. I promise once I see her again, I'll give Oink all of the support you give her in the comments. Until that time, Marie has agreed to do so. Thank you all so much. A long time ago, I remember watching some kind of review of Sword Art Online. Y'all remember Sword Art Online, right? I think they made way more seasons of it. Wild. For a lot of people, it was a gateway anime. Maybe not my first, but one of them. Oh, hey, I found the video. Shout out to Mother's Basement 8 years ago for this banger video. Okay, so in this video, Mother's Basement talked about the lack of understanding Reki Kawahara, SAO's author, had of video games. There were a few notable things mentioned, but one of the notable things was that Reki seemed to be under the impression that reaction time was the essential core of what made a good gamer. This, however, runs in contrast to the reality of most games. While mechanical skill is an integral part of most games, including Overwatch, and many games highlight this mechanical skill more than others, what normally separates those who are great at a game from those who are not is a very specific trait: understanding. Video games may be dominated by those who hone their mechanical skills, but the most common trait that these professionals and high-level players share within basically every game genre is that they have a deep-rooted fundamental understanding of the game. It doesn't even matter what genre you look at. Fighting games, for example, are one I'm sure that the common man probably thinks are dominated by those with the best memory of combos or the quickest reaction time. And while those are a massive facet of this genre, the best players are often the best because of their deep-seated understanding of their game. Whether it be how to approach their matchups, how to approach their situations, how to strategize, how to counter, what frames they have openings, everything. The best of the best understand their game deeply. I'd highly suggest Core A's video on the 3 types of player for more on this topic. It's a great video and a great channel. If we want to bring this a bit closer to home, look at a game like CSGO or Valorant. I'm gonna talk about them like they're the same game, much like we talk about Overwatch and Marvel Rivals like they're the same. Even if the execution of the formula is different, that's the same genre to a T. These games can definitely feel like they're dominated purely by aim if you join up into a game as a casual player. Honestly, part of why I prefer the Overwatch and Rivals genre. But at the highest level, these players are competing in a much more complex way than just trying to peek each other better. The professionals are strategizing and counter-strategizing to an absurd degree, and the reason the players who consistently hit the highest ranks do so is because they have a deep-seated understanding of the way their game works. Overwatch is no different. Overwatch pros are not just pros because they aim better. Top 500 players are not just mechanical masters. I should be very clear evidence of this. I could get out-aimed by a chipmunk without his prescription glasses. The thing that makes the highest level of player shine is their fundamental understanding of the game. High-level players aren't alienated from the rest of the community by being too good. They have a deep, deep understanding of the game altogether. I think that's actually why the opposite tends to be true. I feel like I hear most out-of-pocket bizarre takes when I'm smurfing. I think the first season I ever smurfed was Season 6 of Overwatch 1, though my timing might be off. But I remember specifically someone on a plat team complaining that we had a tracer and a soldier, and that tracer and soldier isn't enough damage. I was stone cold stunned because at the time, Tracer was by far the best damage character in the game, and Soldier wasn't too far behind, with both of them being great generalists, or characters good in a plethora of scenarios. I only understood that his point was so terrible because I'd spent enough time fundamentally understanding the game to a T. It was the only thing that got me to the highest level of play. High-level opinions are not invalid because they can't understand part of the game. They understand it to an absurd degree, and thus have a much better chance of understanding what's good for it. That doesn't cover the issues of perspective, however. How can a high-level player understand the perspective of a low-level player when they are so good? What do they know of the dregs of the cursed land of Elo Hell? A lot more than you'd think. Let's not put aside the fact that professional players did not start professional, and that we all started the game in the same place, so the only place top players may have less knowledge of is the elos below the starting point, which is typically below average, like silver and below. But would you be surprised if I said high-level players often have knowledge of the experience in these ranks as well? Whether it be smurfing, coaching, or VOD reviewing, many high-level players spend an exceptional amount of time studying the situations that arise only in these ranks. Obviously, this isn't all high-ranked players, but I'd say a large portion of them, myself included, know what each and every rank is like, even the ones we may have never been to on our mains. I'm curious what the rebuttal to this would be from someone who invalidates a high-level player's opinion. The only one I can conceive of is that, even despite all of this, a professional player still can't see the game through the eyes of a noob. A low-level player doesn't understand the game like a pro does, so their approach to situations is going to be wholly different. How can a pro player know what frustrates a lower-level player, what pushes them back, what mistakes they're making that they can't even realize? My points may even prove further that this isn't possible. But that's my next point. They can't. And they shouldn't. The thing about these low-level feelings and opinions is that they are all born of a lack of understanding, and thus have an immense range. What one bad player may feel and think are very likely to be completely in contrast with the next bad player, and the slightly better but still bad player will feel something different and have different ideas, etc., ad infinitum. There's no way a high-level player can truly represent all these perspectives, but neither can a low-level player. A low-level player can't accurately represent low-level players because their opinions vary too widely. But this isn't the case for high-level players. Yes, while high-level players will always have disagreements, it's a completely different situation. First of all, these opinions will typically be born of a better fundamental understanding of the game. These players will, on average, get what makes the game tick to an absurdly higher degree, and be able to understand what changes may impact certain facets of the game in a much more complex and accurate way. To even add to this point, higher level players are a much smaller pool of opinions to draw from. Look at the distribution of the game. The lower ranks hold many, many times more players than the higher ranks. More of a concise discussion can be had with this smaller pool of ideas. So remember that next time someone tries to omit an opinion because of your rank, you aren't wrong for being high level. You're right. You're kidding, right? I hope you didn't believe that was my actual stance. Oh, I was completely serious about the stupidity of the argument of discrediting an opinion because they're a high-level player and can't understand low-level players, but the conclusion we draw from all of this is important. You should not let someone invalidate your arguments because you are high level, but you also shouldn't let someone invalidate your arguments, period. While everything I said about higher level players' understanding of the game on a fundamental level more often was true, that can't be used for an excuse to credit or discredit any argument. The idea of invalidating an argument because of someone's rank, whether it's high or low, is absurd. An intelligent person knows that during a discussion, debate, or argument, you are there to look at ideas, not the people. If you ever have to resort to pointing out the status of the person you are talking with during a discussion like this, you are admitting defeat. In a really shitty way, honestly. Why can't you disprove what they say with logic? Why does who they are mean anything to you? Can't you bring up a point that counters theirs, or are you just not smart enough for that? A real, honest, heartfelt conversation, one that actually wants to get to the truth of a situation, does not involve attacks on someone's person, and acknowledges that a point stands by itself alone and can come from anywhere. If a gold player, or a top 500 player, makes an argument that someone else deflects by mentioning their rank, I really don't think that person has anything useful to say. Yes, I love the concept of games being dominated by players who understand the game, and I wish that there was less of a stigma against players who specialize in strategy rather than aim, but I will never let someone attacking someone else's point because of who they are slide. Good ideas are not racist, sexist, ageist, classist, or rankist. Anyone can be brilliant. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope we as a community will always look at the content of what someone says rather than who they are. Please like and subscribe, and join the Discord, and even join the channel if you're able. I miss my family a lot, and everything you guys do gets us closer, even if it's just in tiny steps. I hope I'll see you in the comments again next time I upload something. All of your ideas are worth something here. See you next time. Hey, what are you still doing here? Thanks for watching the whole thing. I honestly wonder how this one's gonna go, cause I imagine if people only watch part of it, they might get really angry. Gonna be an interesting set of comments. I want to try something fun. I'll pick one comment to talk about at the end of my next video, or one of my next videos, whatever it might be. It can be like a hot take, or just some point you want to make. If you want to be that comment, include what your favorite anime is too. I'll pick based off the anime and talk about the point, so long as it's something I can talk about. Okay, see ya!